Welcome to Better, the podcast about doing better, being better, and leaving the world a better place than we found it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Better. I'm your host, Jay. This is part 2 with Kyle Jetsel. And I just want to, before we get to everything with Kyle about his 6 kids, I want to talk about a couple things. First thing being, I know that you're probably noticing in interviews, and I'll talk about it right now. I move a lot in interviews. I'm doing a lot more movement than I used to. That's, if you go back to the first episode coming up off of the break that we had, I just kind of go in and explain that. But basically the deal is I've got this crazy shoulder pain and it's like locking up. So I have to kind of move. And so, let's pay attention to Kyle, less paying attention to me. And I'm sure it'll be all right. So in the first part with Kyle, we talked about his wife who passed from COVID. She's the fact that she's a Southern Belle and she sounds like a absolutely lovely person. We talked a little bit about his kids. However, this episode, this part, we're going to talk more about that. And I can only imagine what it's like to raise 6 kids. First of all, solo, but second of all, with this mission that he has, and that is to be a top 1% family and to encourage his kids to be the best they can be. I know that doesn't mean enlisting in the Army. That just means in general, what is it that they can make of their lives? So I'm going to bring Kyle back in here. Kyle, hey, how's it going?
Going good.
All right. So I have talked many times on this show about the fact that I don't have kids, the fact that I'm, Shauna has 2, and I'm doing my best to wade those waters. I can't imagine what it's like to have 6. And as you said in the past episode, it wasn't a conscious decision, but it did happen, and it was an explanation behind it. So how about we jump into that first? How did you end up with 6 kids?
So my wife and I never really talked about how many kids we would have. But as we started having kids, each of our kids, I should say, was planned. So none of them were a surprise.
Okay.
But after our first son, our first child was a son, and we had another son. And my wife, being a Southern Belle and being feminine and just a picture of feminine beauty, she wanted to pass that down, and I wanted her to pass that down. I mean, we knew that was something that needed to be around forever, as moving forward in the generations. And so after our second son, we decided to have a third child, and it was a boy. And then we had another child, and it was a boy. So I had 4 sons. And I remember my wife coming to me, and this was all in it. If we'd had a son and a daughter, we might have had one more, right? But we would have had everything we needed, right? Mm-hmm. So we got 4 sons now, and my wife, I remember her with tears in her eyes one time. She said to me, "I guess I'm just supposed to be the mother of boys." And I said, "Okay." And this is one of those things where you can't solve these problems, right? I kind of have to listen. Well, 6 years passed. And one day I got home from work, and again, my wife had tears in her eyes, and she said to me, "I think we should try one more time for a girl," is what she said. And I said, "Well, let's, we believe in divinity. So we prayed about it. We considered it. And frankly, when my wife came to me with those kind of requests, it was pretty much going to happen. We can beat around the bush about that kind of stuff, but it was going to happen. And so we got pregnant she got pregnant shortly after. And I remember I was at work one day, and she called me at work, and she said, "I feel like you need to go to the doctor with me today. I'm going to go get checked out." And so I said, and that's another one. If your wife calls you at work and says, "Sis, I need you to go with me somewhere because I feel like you need to go," my recommendation is to say you're right and just go, right?
Fair enough.
And
I
so,
agree with that fully.
so she picked me up. We went to the doctor, and as he was doing the sonogram, he said, "There's two babies in here."
Whoa. Okay. Plot
And my
twist.
wife, yeah, and my wife, or I said, "That's not funny. We already have four sons." And the doctor said back, "We don't joke about these kind of things." It was the response, right? And the
Mhm.
thought crossed my mind, if these are two boys, she's going to kill me. Because the whole idea here is to have a girl. And the good news is one of those two is a girl. And I now have five sons and one daughter, and
Wow.
they're twins, one boy, one girl. So we did get our girl out of the deal. But if we would have had a girl in the first or second or third try, we probably would have only had three kids. But I
Right.
think life, you know, life challenges you in different ways, and I think you make these are those decisions that happen on the fly, right? I mean, we
Hmm.
could have had a mission, but there's not the mission didn't include how many kids, or the mission included we wanted to have a happy family, and the mission included, raise them this way and do these things, but it never we never decided on a number. So that's kind of how we ended up with six kids.
Okay. Well, I'm going to bring up here, just one second, your Facebook cover photo.
Mm.
So this is your Facebook. So I don't know if you want to go left to right and kind of tell us about each of your kids here, and we can get to know them a little bit. I love the
All right.
line "In chaos, there's also opportunity." That's great.
We kind of became a family mantra because there was a lot of chaos. We also created one called Thrive in Chaos because chaos was a given with all of our kids. So on the far left is my oldest son, Alec. Next to him, the little bitty guy there is one of the twins. That's Jack. Then you have the third child who's not smiling and is not a smiler is my more severe son on the autism spectrum, Eric.
Okay.
That's me, and then my wife Shelly next to me. Then the other twin, that's Chloe. She's the little girl. She's the what did somebody call her? The flower in the onion patch is what they called her.
Love it.
And then to her right is Ricky. He's my number four son, and then to his right is Zach, my second son. So, and they're a bit older than they are in this picture now. My oldest son he just turned 30. He's married and lives
Oh
away
wow.
from home. He'll be here in probably a half hour. We're going to watch an NBA game together. He and his wife, and my other son on the far right is married as well, and they're both out living their best lives, doing great in the world. And I don't have any grandkids yet, but I'm sure that's going to be along before too long. So yeah, that's my family. I do think it's for anybody to assume. I think sometimes when people see our family or they saw Shelly and I together, they might assume because we smile at each other a lot and because we seem to be enjoying our lives a lot, I think people might consider that there isn't a lot of turmoil or chaos under the surface or at home. That's just not the way it works, people. If you see a happy family, they're happy by choice. It doesn't mean they're not fighting an extreme battle or challenge, or there's always stuff going on underneath that you have no idea. And you might look at a couple and say they're like a Ken and Barbie couple. Nuh-uh. That doesn't exist, right?
No.
It only exists on the surface. Or if you look at somebody's Facebook page and you think, I wish I was living their life, you have no idea what they're not posting.
Very true.
So I just want everybody to be aware that happy family picture there, and that's why I wrote that across there. It was chaos for years and years. I mean, my boys were challenging, and from defiance to you know uh, suicide ideation in one of my sons to one of my sons is more severe on the autism spectrum to violence, escalated violence, to kids wanting to run away. Everything, almost everything you could possibly imagine happening in a family
Mhm.
has occurred when you have six kids, right? I mean, nobody is immune to those challenges and those struggles. The goal is not to avoid them or protect our kids from those things, right? The goal is to manage those things in a way that allow us to be happy as we face challenges and as we face trials and as we go through the turmoil that is life. How do we rise above it and spread happiness and joy as we face those challenges? And so that's really uh, what we became, right? Is a family who is, we know it's going to happen. We know, my wife and I knew our kids were challenging. I mean, I researched for about a year on strong-willed kids. And when I started realizing what these boys were, I realized I needed to be a lot better. I needed to be a lot better. And my wife realized she needed to come my way and I needed her to go her way a little bit. And we needed to be, like I said earlier, united in our front against these crazy animals, right? And have the same mission together. Otherwise, they kids can rip you apart. They really can. And it's not because they're bad. It's because they're kids. They're trying to understand the world. They're trying to figure out things, right? And the first place they do it is in our homes. And so they're going to be challenging. They're going to be difficult. But that's also the joy of it, right? Is seeing them rise above and grow to be, I've all my sons now are taller than me. I've got one that's 6'5", and I've got a 6'2" and a 6'3" son. And I'm like, they're giants, but seeing them be great men, be good men, is so much more exciting than their physical stature or their excellence in sports or, their career. Just knowing they're good men, it just gives you this hope and this excitement that you can really ride,
Yeah, no, I hear you. Sorry, everybody. Just letting you know, I don't know where those thumbs ups. I don't know if you've seen them, Kyle, but every so often a thumbs up shows up on the screen. I don't know where those are coming from. I've checked all the settings. I'm currently checking the settings now. I wonder if this is it.
Might be Apple stuff if you're using Apple.
Yeah, I don't know where it's exactly coming from, but just letting you guys know that when it happens, I'm not trying to do I think it's just whenever I do this, it pauses or it's not doing it now. Okay. But yeah, just so you guys know, that's just some weird thing of the software. I'll have to talk to the people at StreamYard and figure out exactly how to turn that off. So you talked about, having a plan and executing on the plan with your wife and everything. And you talk about doing better. How did you, because you said each kid came with their own challenge and you have the one kid that's got severe autism. And obviously that's a huge challenge all into itself. What were the things you did to do better that you felt like if you hadn't done, you may not have gotten to this point where you had this happy functioning family?
I love that question because it's, I think all too often, we have a goal, but we don't have a plan of action, right? I know a lot of people say, I hope my kids grow up to be good people, or I pray about it, and hoping and prayer is good, but it ain't gonna get you nowhere without a plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so my wife and I, actually initially just me, because remember, my wife had lost faith in me, and I felt like I was on my own in my approach early on. But it's interesting, I decided that what I needed was, I shouldn't be surprised by things that happened. When my kids challenged me or did certain things, I shouldn't be surprised by it because that's what they are. That's what kids do, right? And so initially I created something I called a COST framework. And the C, and it's COST, and the C is for challenge, the O is for objective, the S is for strategy, and the T are for tactics, right? And what I decided to do is anytime I felt frustrated or angry or discouraged or disappointed, I would pull out my COST worksheet and I would write down the challenge. I'm discouraged because this is happening. Can't seem to figure. And I would write out all the details of it to get leverage on myself, right? So that I would take action. The O was objective. I needed to know what my long-term objective was for this strategy. If I've got a child that's diagnosed with oppositional defiance disorder, right? I needed to know what my long-term objective was for that, me personally, and possibly for my child. What do I want him or her to learn long term. And then the S was strategy. What am I going to name the strategy? Because sometimes when things are going crazy, we're not able to snap into a state where we can apply what we know to do. We all know what we should do. We just can't do it when it gets hard, right? But
Yeah, yeah, I hear that.
I wanted to have a name for what I was going to do. And then T were for tactics, right? And my first tactic, after a while, I realized my first tactic needed to be, I'm going to put myself in the spirit of love. I'm going to talk and approach it in a spirit of love. And then after that, depending on what the challenge was, I was going to take a series of steps every time, right? And so let's say it was a child screaming in church, or a child not wanting to go to school, or a kid who won't wear clothes. I've had all these. Or a child that likes to throw things at you when they're not unhappy, or, right? All these are challenges. Or a kid that curses his mom, right? These are all challenges. I would write out the challenge. What's my long-term objective? What's my strategy? What's my tactics? The cool part about this is I would do it when I was calm and had all my bearings. And so the next time it happened, I would just remember the strategy and jump right into my tactics, right? And I'll give you a good example. My more severe son used to have these horrible meltdowns where you wouldn't even know what was going on, but he would be screaming and yelling and, tearing stuff up and punching walls and breaking things. And it could ruin your day, as you can probably imagine. And so I created a strategy I called winning every challenge with him, right? That was the name, because my objective was to get him through that challenge quickly and be at my very best and love on him. Because sometimes I didn't even know what the problem was. So it was all about me in this situation. So winning every challenge was the name of it. And my tactics were, first, I'm going to put myself in the spirit of love, right? I'm not going to get mad or angry or discouraged. Second is I'm not going to be surprised when this happens, right? Because it happens.
Yeah.
So all too often parents, you see them, it's like they're shocked that their kid is misbehaving. Why are you shocked? That's what they do. Don't be shocked. Don't let it throw you into a tizzy, right? So that was one of my tactics. My next and I actually came up with an acronym called APWAC. And you say it like the duck, the duck from
I said it in my head like the duck. As soon as you said it, I said APWAC.
It's APWEC. And the A is for assume there will be challenges. Stop being surprised. Okay. The P is prepare myself mentally and physically to be in a state of love. I'm going to stand up tall. I'm going to put my body in a loving, like a courageous space. And I'm going to mentally say, I can do this. I've done it before. I'm going to do it again. Right. And I want to address it in a spirit of love. So I prepare myself. And then W is win. I'm going to win the challenge through kindness and patience and love. I don't care if it lasts 10 minutes or an hour. I'm going to be calm, and I'm going to calmingly address the problem, and I'm going to bring him back to square, and I'm going to be loving. And that's how I win, right? The E is for endure and have energy. All too often, if we face these challenges, it saps our energy. But what I learned is when you face challenges in a spirit of love, it can energize you, right? Because you did the right thing. It's like when you ever lose a basketball game, you're sapped of energy. But when you win, you're feeling pretty good, same energy, but you're feeling okay, right?
Yeah.
So I thought, if I can win through kindness and patience and love, I can have energy when it's over with. And then the C in APWAC is celebrate. When I walk away, I got to celebrate my success. All too often, we don't celebrate our little successes, right? So I'm like, here's my strategy. The next time he has a meltdown, I'm going to do APWAC, right? And that my strategy is called winning every challenge. Assume there will be challenges, prepare myself mentally and physically to be in a spirit of love, win through kindness and patience and love, have energy and endure, and celebrate the crap out of it, right? So I remember one morning we were going to go over to the park, and we were going to go over about noon, and my son has a meltdown at 10:30, and he's screaming in his room. So I run up there, and I APWAC him, right? Assume, prepare, win, energy, endure, celebrate. About 20 minutes later, I come downstairs and I say, he's fine. Well, let's go to the park. And my wife says, wait a minute. This is unhealthy, Kyle. And I said, what are you talking about? She said, you're suppressing your anger. You're going to explode. You can't suppress your anger when you have to face that. And I said, I'm not suppressing my anger. I have a system. I have a strategy, right? And it's based on the
Mhm.
cost formula: challenge, objective, strategy, tactics. And you can create strategies for anything, right? And she said, well, what? And I said, I'm not upset. I feel good. I handled it well. I feel great. Let's go to the park. And she says, what are you doing? Hold on. Right. And she gave me the opportunity to share AppWhack, to share, assume, prepare, win, energy, celebrate. She gave me that opportunity to share with her. And she said, I think I can do that. And I said, if you want to do it, let's do it together. Right. And what it did was we started creating these strategies for every time we got upset or frustrated or angry or discouraged or hurt, we would pull out a worksheet. Right? What's the
Hmm.
challenge? What's the objective? Long-term objective. What's the strategy? What's the tactics? And we would get away from the emotion and create a plan so that things things only happen to us once before we started to have a plan. Before we started to have a plan for addressing these things. And what it did was it gave our kids consistency. They knew every time I curse at mom. In the past, she would freak out. She would scream and yell. She would get upset. And when dad came home, he would give it to us. That's the pattern, right?
Mm.
Now we curse at mom. She's calm, cool, collected. She has a series of steps and it's consistent. And you know what happened? They stopped doing it because it didn't take mom out of a state where she was productive and happy and correct. And their kids are. My wife used to say kids are like velociraptors, right? And you're gonna laugh, right? You remember the movie, right?
They do.
They're in this walled off cage with electrified fences around the top. And what do the velociraptors do? All day long, every day, they're testing the fences in different areas, looking for a weakness, right?
Mhm.
In the movie, they turn off the electricity for 30 seconds and the velociraptors escape and they rule the island, they take over and they're running the world, right? And they kill everything. But she says kids are like velociraptors in that they're going to be testing the fences consistently now. And they're going to find weaknesses. And when they find weaknesses, they're going to exploit them. Now, it's not because they're bad, it's because they're kids and they're trying to figure out how the world works. And if I
Yep.
can curse at mom and mom loses her crap and I don't have to clean my room, that's a win, right? Or if I scream or if I right if I don't make my bed one morning and she yells at me and I just keep not making it and she keeps yelling, I never have to make it, right? I mean,
Mm.
I can deal with the yelling, but I win, right? And when you have strong-willed kids, they want to win, right? So the idea for us was we got to let them win, but we got to let them win, and it's better to win by doing the right things for the right reasons and being kind. In our home, you win by being kind, right? You don't win by being crappy because guess what? There's a series of steps that are going to be followed. Sometimes those aren't going to work out well for you. But as parents, we gave them consistency. They knew every time they did X, Y was going to happen. And guess what? The scariest part is dad didn't scream at us. He was very calm and cool, collected. And we're like, holy moly. We know he's got an animal in there, but he's very calm. That's really even scarier, right?
Right.
Now, luckily, my kids aren't afraid of me. We actually shared the cost formula with them. We shared this stuff. We said, "Hey, here's what we're doing. We want you to have strong spirits. We want you to be hard-headed. We want you to go out and take over the world. But we got to guide you. You're a velociraptor. We got to give you some guidelines so that you don't end up in prison. Because guess what? If we discipline you in a spirit of love, you know why? Because we love you. The world won't do that. If you don't have any discipline, if you leave our home and you don't know what discipline is, they will arrest you, they will throw you in jail, and they will not care. But we love you. That's why we give you discipline so that you can know you can have discipline on your own. We love you. That's the reason. And that cost formula it works for everything. The next time you have an argument with your girlfriend, pull out your cost formula. What's the challenge? What's your long-term objective? I want her to feel loved. I want her to know I'm here for her. I want, right? All these things. What's the strategy? What's the tactics? And you start following your tactics, you can take yourself the emotion out of it and do what's right in the spirit of love. And that's really the key to it is how do you manage these things in a spirit of love, even heightened, crazy, overwhelming emotions, right? If you
Right.
can manage those in a spirit of love, man, you're going to win. And that doesn't always mean passive. Sometimes it means more aggressive, but in a spirit of love way, right? I'm feeling
Yeah.
you full of stuff. I'm sorry, man. I'm
Yeah, no,
overrun.
it's good. It's all good stuff. It's funny because I did an episode about celebrating everything you can in
Yeah,
life. It doesn't matter if it's small or big. It doesn't matter if the celebration is small or big either. Just taking the time to celebrate your wins, I think, is a huge piece of life. But as I'm listening to you talk, I'm curious about something that's going to put you on the spot. And,
good.
you know, um, not the dictionary definition. What is your definition of the word love?
I think my definition of the word love is patience and kindness and meekness, right?
Okay.
Love is a hard word to define.
It really is. Yes.
It really is hard, but I will tell you this, and maybe and love doesn't have any ego, and I think that's a huge part of it, right? All too often, when things happen, we feel attacked, and our ego is the predominant thing that makes decisions that reacts. That's why we get angry and frustrated and discouraged because it's our ego. We don't like it. It's our ego, right? And I'll share with you a quick story. I remember one day I was going to work and I just dropped my son off at school, and I came to a four-way stop, and I was on the right, and the guy was on the left at a four-way stop, and we came at the exact same time. So legally, the guy on the right goes first, right?
Yep.
And this is back when I lived in Texas, and the guy on the left was in a big giant truck, you know. And nothing wrong with big giant trucks, but that's a lot of that in Texas. And so we
Yeah.
come to the four-way stop. I'm on the right, so I go ahead and go. Well, he wasn't happy about it. He was not happy about it. So he comes around, zooms around, and he's driving beside me, and he is cursing the crap out of me. This dude he's over the top, right? And in my mind, I'm thinking, I boxed for 4 years. I grew up in the hood, bro. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at you up in that big truck, and you are way too close to the steering wheel. This ain't going to go well for you at all, right?
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
ego, right? I'm thinking, bro, you better take it down a notch because I will step out of this car and I'll leave you in a lump. It ain't going to be good, right? And I look over and he's still screaming. And I think, you know what? How can I do this in a spirit of love? Right? How can I manage this in a spirit of love? So we come to a stop sign and I roll down my window and I think he thinks it's about to be on. Right. And he sticks his face out of his window and I lean over and I say, hey, if I did something to upset you, I sure am sorry. I really didn't. I wasn't trying to upset you. And that's true. Right.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Of
took my
course.
ego out of it. I took my ego out of it. And I said, if I did something to upset you, I sure am sorry. I really didn't mean to. And he went from wanting to kill me to a big old, it just changed his temperament immediately. And he said to me, oh, he said, it's okay. And I said, hey, bro, have a great day. And he said, hey, you too. And we drove on, right? Here's what's really crazy. The next day, we both came to the same stop at the same time again. Very next day.
Wow.
And I looked over and I saw him and I was like, I'm not messing with this guy again. So I waved him on. And you know what he did? He was like, oh no, you go, you go.
Oh
He
yeah.
wanted
Of
to
course.
go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now we're best friends, right? And it's really about, if we take our ego out of these situations, right? And just look at people with respect and kindness and say, how can I treat this person? Obviously, he had something going on that morning that was really bad. That dude was not having a good day. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. He could have lost his mom. His wife could have screamed at him. One of his kids might be sick. I don't really know what's going on in his world, but whatever it wasn't good. I mean, something was setting him off. And
Yeah.
it couldn't have been me. But the point is, how can we, when we're confronted with these experiences, a lot of times our egos jump, right? Yo, dude, I'm a man, bro. You better step back, right? But
Mm-hmm.
but if you stop and you go, how can I treat this person kindly and in a loving way, in a kind way? You'll say things and it'll just disarm people. Now, sometimes there's no helping people. You got to go. right? Sometimes the kindest thing to do is to turn around and get the crap out of there, right? That's
Yeah.
sometimes, but it's amazing. Sometimes your spouse, your girlfriend, or people you work with will come at you. Our natural inclination is to defend ourselves, right? But and we can, but if we say, what can I say, or how can I do this in the spirit of love? You'll be shocked at how much more goodness will come out of it. You can defend yourself in the spirit of love, right? And calmly and quietly and convincingly work with whoever you're dealing with. And it changes the dynamics of your relationships with people. And people leave feeling better. And you leave feeling better. Right. And when
Yeah.
how do we do better? We spread better. How can I feel better about right? We all have situations where we've got heightened and caused major problems and it escalated, and we've all been there. And we
Mhm.
look back and go, we sometimes we even brag about those things, but the reality is it didn't make it better. Rarely,
Yeah.
rarely, right?
Yeah.
But when you can leave things better than you found them, especially in heightened situations, how powerful is that to be able to do that in the world and just walking
Yeah.
around? And I heard a guy one time say, happy, loving, kind people live in a happy, loving, kind world. Angry, bitter people live in an angry, bitter world, and it's the same world.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. I worked in the bar scene for a long time, and I remember coming up and all the fights that would happen in the bars naturally, right? You had alcohol and loud music and a bunch of egos, and you're going to have fights. And remember, it came to the point, there was a point with this company I was working with, and they started training their security um methods of bringing the heat down, right? Kind of conflict resolution through you know conversation as opposed to escalating. And I remember thinking back, I was like, I don't know, 18, 19 at the time. I remember thinking, like, just knock the guy out. Like, that's the
You're right.
fastest way to solve this problem, right? And there was a time when I was confronted at one of the clubs with a guy who was just pissed at he wanted to kill everybody. Like, this guy was out of control. And I remember, just it was a very unnatural, quick to anger kind of reaction. And my security guards got him outside, and we're on the side of the building. And I said to him, well, dude, what is going on? Like, there's no like, this should not be doing this to you. Like, what's going on? Like, what is ultimately the reason that you're freaking out right now? And then we had a conversation kind of similar to what you're talking about, and he calmed down. And then it was probably maybe the next year. I had heard about an incident at another club, a shooting, and it was this guy who basically, what happened was, he started a fight. The fight escalated, security escalated. It turned into a big, crazy incident. He's hopped up. He goes to his car, gets a gun, and shoots a guy. And it really resonated, because I remember seeing his picture and going, that can't be the same guy. It really resonated with me at that point. And what I learned, this is probably one of the first things in my betterment journey, was the things that are, because him and I, when we talked, we had what a lot of guys would call a cheesy conversation, right? And what I learned was, the cheesy things, the things that a lot of guys would consider cheesy, like leading with the spirit of love and all that. You say that to some guys, and they're like, okay,
Yeah,
way to
yeah.
go. Oh, I hope I didn't get okay. Good thumbs up that can happen. And those are the ways to live. The cheesy, the trite, the cliche. Those are the real lessons that we should be following, because they generally, cheesy usually equals compassionate, or equals kind, or that sort of thing. And I have a thing with my girlfriend. I tell her, because I have been a bit of a hothead, and like you, I was a boxer, and all these things. So what is the natural inclination when somebody's messing around, right? Where's my glove? Let's do this. Obviously not with her, but in general, I get heated under the collar. So I told her, I picked this really stoic character on a TV show I like, and I said, if I start to act out, if I'm starting to get, very expressive and angry or whatever, I want you to just say that name. Just don't yell it. Don't just say Jason Morgan. And what it'll do is it allows a reset in my head and allows me to go, oh, right, stoic, kind, there for people, always the rock for his loved ones and the people he cares about. And it works. It works like wonder. And so when you talk about all these things, I keep thinking to myself, like, there are guys listening to this right now, like, okay, guy, like, you're so cheesy. But if you can get past that whole male ego, this is cheesy thing, and you can really look at the situation and say, this is actually a very valuable piece of advice. You can make the world a better place just by doing that.
I love that I love that you have a strategy and you engage her in helping you with that strategy, right? She can see it, and she sees the emotion, and she sees it, so she can be your, like, the trigger for you, which is fantastic. All it is a strategy to manage yourself. I think as men, we want to be men. We're masculine. We want to kill, right? We want to. It's part of our nature, and it's good, right? The key is just really, it's better to be a warrior in the garden, right, than a gardener in the war, and we know that, right? And by the way, if a guy comes up to me and says, you're cheesy, I say, that's okay. I mean, I'm not upset by it. I will say this: if you ever want to meet me in a ring for a little while, right, you can see that part of me come out in a controlled environment. If you're okay with you getting knocked out, or I'm not gonna. I really don't want to go there. But and call it what you will, right? The goal for me is to be better and to create a world of better and to spread better, right? And I know what that does for the world and how that makes me feel, and that's what I'm searching for and constantly trying to achieve. If you think I'm cheesy, that's okay, right? I'm not upset about it. As a matter of fact, I'm probably am a lot cheesy in a lot of situations, but you know what? I got a lot of friends, and I live in a real happy, loving, kind world. I'm surrounded by it all the time, and if that's your goal, then start being cheesy, right? But I mean, if that's not your mission, if your mission is to, it's interesting you say that, because I heard something a while back and it resonated with me so strongly. And it's the reason I like to do podcasts now is it said, and they were asking this director about movies. And he said, the interesting thing about superhero movies is, he says, the villain and the hero have the exact same backstory. And I said, what? And he says, the villain says, the world hurt me, I'm going to hurt it back. And he says, the hero says, the world hurt me, I'm not going to let this happen to anybody else. And it's just literally how you decide to react to the pain and suffering you experience in your life that causes you to be a hero or a villain. Right. And it was interesting when I first heard this, having a son on the autism spectrum, I was fighting for his rights, and I was fighting for his acceptance, and I was fighting for all this, and it made me a fighter. And I thought, oh crap, I'm a villain. And I don't really want to be because the world has hurt me, and I'm gonna fight back, right? And I realized, wait a minute, I don't want this to happen to anybody. How can I reframe this so that I get to be the hero, right? And it's true. Every villain and every hero has the same backstory. And if you go back and watch these movies, you'll see it, right? The reality is, how do you decide what approach to take? When my wife passed away, I mean, talk about tragedy. I can think of maybe 1 million people that should have gone before her. She brought joy and happiness and love into this world. How could you, God? Right? It ain't right. It ain't fair. It ain't right. That is wrong. right? And believe me, that bitterness wanted to bore into my soul. Yeah, that bitterness, that anger, that frustration, that unfairness made me want to attack, right? And I have a choice at this point. We're all going to suffer. We're all going to experience pain. Am I going to hurt the world back? Or am I going to say, you know what? I don't want other people to, I want people to experience love and happiness and joy. And so I'm going to attempt to be the hero and run down that path as hard and as fast as I can. And that means sometimes it means meekness. It means kindness in escalated situations. It means press the ego aside. If we're wanting to make the world a better place for the generations to come, starts with us, man. And let's teach our kids. They're strong, they're tough, they're rough. Let's aim them in the right direction. And that's really what, that's my vision now. And my mission is to help parents learn how to do that with their kids and have them achieve that full, wonderful, kind, happy, loving potential that they have.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's a great mission. I remember years ago, it was late night, it was winter, it was something had happened, and I was thinking to myself, it's funny you talk about superheroes and all this, because I'm a huge superhero nerd. And Superman is my story. Love, my email is Lex Kent, where it's kind of the balance between the two. And I remember thinking to myself one night, I was sitting there and I thought, man, I'm going dark. I'm turning into the villain. I'm making decisions based on revenge and these sorts of things. And I said, what is driving this? So I pretty much turned off the world for a few days, and I really thought about it, and I got on my whiteboards and I doodled and everything, and put down my entire life up to that point. And I walked away with an obvious, something that should be obvious or should have been obvious to me the entire time, but it wasn't. And that is that every single choice you make either takes you a step further in the hero direction or further in the villain direction. If you take too many steps in one direction, into the villain direction, you are going to get dark. You are going to start, the natural inclination to you is going to be the villain, the villainous choices. Whereas if you step further into the light each time, eventually the natural inclination is going to be the hero, to do good in the world. And maybe that's why some people see goodness as cheesy, is because they've taken too many steps in that other direction, right? So I try to always consider that, and especially, it's just gonna sound like a stupid example, and we're almost done here, but I just want to share a story with you because I know you'll appreciate it. I come from a very weird life. I've just done whatever I wanted to do. I've pretty much not lived by anybody's rules but my own. And I met Shauna, and she has a little bit more, well, not a little bit, a considerably more traditional life. She's domesticated. I am a wild boar. And we make jokes about all the time how I'm being further domesticated. And some days it is hard to live in that domesticated life. And I get frustrated because, I think the way I've been trained to think, or the way I have trained myself to think, is this is all just nonsense. I want to do something that's really important and big. But then, you come back around and say, well, this relationship is important and big. This me being a presence in her children's lives, that's a big mission. That's a big, important thing. So, the priorities change. But at the end of the day, meeting her and being on her journey with her has made me step further into that light, right? And it sounds like exactly what happened with you and Shelly. And now you're passing it on to these 6 kids, which is amazing, because they'll pass it on and they'll pass it on and they'll pass it on, right? So having 6 kids, you've probably created a legacy of the spirit of love, we'll say, dozens and dozens, if not hundreds deep by the 50, 100 years from now, right? So that's a pretty cool, if that's your mission, sounds like you've succeeded, and that's amazing. That's great. So
the great thing about it, first of all, let me tell you that, dude, I don't even know you, and I'm proud of you, man. I know guys like you and me. Growing up where I grew up, there's guys that are in prison. There's guys that are living tough, rough, difficult lives because they haven't escaped some of those things that were drilled into them and born into them growing up in those situations, right? It's
Right.
hard. I used to tell my oldest son one time came to me and after I dealt with my more severely autistic son, and he said, I just don't know how you can be so kind to him when he's so crappy to you, you know? And he is. Sometimes he is just not nice to me, and I said, well, it's because I'm submissive to the mission. My mission is for him to know I love him no matter what.
Right.
Right. But I know, and I feel grateful. I'm so grateful I met my wife, Shelly. And I'm so grateful that I listened to her. And, no matter where you're at in the journey, I mean, it's better to be 2 steps from hell, from villainy and pointed in the right direction than it is to be 2 steps from hero and pointed in the wrong direction. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
if you're on the one end and the world is hating you and you're bitter and angry, dude, turn the other way and say, you know what? For the next day, just one day, I'm going to spread love everywhere, and I want to feel good about it. Watch what happens, right? And just start moving it. One of the things that always bugs me is I've got a lot of friends who are wealthy. I run in a circle that have of wealthy friends, and a lot of these guys will talk to me about legacy, and it's all about the money.
Mm.
And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with wealth. I promote wealth. I promote abundance. But dude, money comes and goes, man. The legacy is is who you leave behind, what you left. Did you leave kindness and love and right? My dad was a get rich quick guy who never got rich.
Mm.
That was who my dad was. And I remember one time he called me. I was probably 35. I'm a grown man with kids. He calls me, says, Kyle, I found the answer. I said, and I told him, I said, at this point, I said, Dad, don't you ever get tired of the get rich quick stuff? You know it doesn't work. You've tried them all.
Mm.
And he said something I'll never forget. It upset me initially. He said, what's the worst? I could hear him smiling on the phone, right? And he said, what's the worst thing that could happen? I could die trying. And he laughed. And it
Mm.
made me mad. It made me mad, right? But then the more I thought about it, trying gave him hope and it gave him buoyancy and it gave him joy and it gave him happiness. And when my dad died, he left a wake of happiness everywhere he went. I would
Mm.
meet people and I would say, my name's Jetsel. And they would say, Jetsel, do you know Jerry Jetsel? And I would say, he's my dad. And they would say, what? What? I love him. Right. They would pour love all over me because of who he was. He was a broke guy that never got rich, but spewed kindness and happiness and joy everywhere he went his whole life. And that is a legacy right there, bro. Because the money will get spent, you know? And the money ain't going to make you happy. It'll put you in a nicer home while you search for happiness, but it ain't going to make you happy, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, what do we really want as men? Do we want, right? And the secondary part of that is it makes you so much happier now. If you think I'm faking my happiness, you're absolutely wrong. Somebody asked my wife one time, "Is he always like this? Is he always this happy?" And she said, "Yeah, he's kind of like this all the time." And they said, "Does it ever annoy you?" And she said, "Yeah, sometimes it does." Right. But the point is, if you want to be happy, if you want to experience joy in your life, do the right things, the small little right things. They're easy to do. Say hi to people, smile at people, be friendly, be kind. When situations get escalated, be the calming voice. Say, "Hey, bro, you okay? What's going on, man? How can I help?" You watch what
Yeah.
happens in your world. It changes for the better. It makes things better, just better.
Yeah, my girlfriend has a great life. She's got her dream job. She's got her 2 kids. She's just bought a dream vehicle. She's currently in Croatia. Riding on a boat all over the place. She's she's in great shape. Every she feels physically great, mentally great. And people ask me sometimes. My friends will meet her, right? I have a lot of friends in various points in their life. And my
Right.
friends will meet her and say, God, like, that girl seems so happy. And I said, she does, because she got everything she wanted. She got everything she wanted by simply being a good person and being led by that. Her job as a nurse, that you have to be led with kindness and goodness to be able to execute that job to a level that makes a difference. Sure, they're kids. They make mistakes. They say some mean stuff to her sometimes. But for the most part, she's got a couple kids that, would immediately defend her no matter what. She definitely has a boyfriend that'll do that. Regardless of whether I have to talk somebody down or put my boxing gloves on, I'm defending her till my dying breath. And she's just got this great life, and that comes as a result of who she is. And so I've gotten to I was having this conversation with a friend on Thursday night, and he's complaining about where he's at in life. And I said to him, you talk about how is Shauna have this life? And then you talk about how do you have your life? I'm like, the common thread is you're not leading by, these good morals and these great decisions. You're leading by being angry all the time. So, I'm hoping that that's given him enough to think about, that he'll go in that different direction. But, yeah, it sounds like you and I were very lucky to meet the women that we met. Absolutely. So, we went way over, but that's okay, because, it's a great conversation. I really appreciate you jumping on with me. If anybody, out there, they want to talk about, family and all that, they, I've shown your Facebook a couple of times. I'll be sure to send them your way, because absolutely you can help people out. Do you, this one thing I'm not sure of, because we had a quick conversation. I knew I wanted to have you on the show. Do you actively have a role in this world that helps people do this? Is this like a job for you, or are you just spreading love just because?
Well, it started out spreading love just because, but I do have a coaching practice where I coach parents raising strong-willed kids.
Okay. What is it? What, you have a website?
If you go to kylejetsel.com, that's the best way to catch up with me. I'm rebuilding a few things, but yeah, kylejetsel.com. Okay. All my contact information is there. Yeah, you can connect with me on Facebook as well. So I don't actively promote it as much, but yeah, if you or your wife, and if you're a man and your wife seems overwhelmed and frustrated with the kids way too often, we should chat, because I can help you help her.
Right. Perfect. Yeah.
And at the same time, make you happy, Dad. Let me tell you, when my wife was the first one to tell somebody we had a top 1% happy marriage. And my wife was not a cheerleader. Like she just wasn't that way.
Right.
And so when she told somebody else that and I heard it, oh my gosh, my head exploded, right? I knew we were happy, but when she said it out loud, it was one of those moments of celebration that I'll never forget. And so if that's what you're looking for, bros, if you want your wife to just be happy in her marriage with you and raising those crazy kids you got, reach out to me. I can help you in that area. And I'll have fun doing it. I will have a lot of fun doing it too, obviously.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, no, you definitely seem like you really enjoy this whole mission that you're on, and it's great, man. It's I hope people listening, if they need help, they'll reach out, and even if not, if just the conversation itself made them think, that's all we can do to try to do better, right? So, yeah, I greatly appreciate having you. Anything else you want to say before you go?
Nope. Thank you for having me, Jay. I really appreciate the conversation. It was great.
Yeah, no problem. What basketball team? What game are you guys watching today?
I'm from Dallas. I'm a Dallas Mavericks fan. We got Luke. So yeah, my boys will be here any minute. All my boys are coming over that are married, and all my kids. We're gonna sit around and scream and yell at the TV for a couple of hours.
Sounds good. I've always been partial to the Bulls, but I know I don't think he's involved anymore. I honestly have fallen off, but I think Cuban's not involved anymore, right?
He owns a little bit of the team, but he's sold most of the team away. But he's still there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm a big fan of his, so I love watching him. I love watching the YouTube compilations of him getting excited on the sidelines. Yeah. Good time for basketball.
Yep.
All right, man. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. I appreciate it. Everybody, if you would like to get in touch with Kyle, he's giving you the ways. And this was a great conversation about doing better in your relationship, doing better with your kids. And if this guy can do it with 6 kids, you can do it too. Come on, we know you can. As always, if you like this episode, greatly appreciate you dropping a follow, a like, a subscription, and a rating. It goes a long way to making sure more people can see or listen to the messages we have here about being better. All right, I will talk to you guys again soon. Later.
Thanks for checking out Better. If you got to the end, it must mean you liked the episode, right? So how about 5 stars, maybe a sub, maybe a share, great universal comment points, and good luck on your better journey.